Hi everyone, it's Clyde at Vibrant Soap, and today's soap was really not inspired by a duck like it says in the title, but it almost did. It started really with a fragrance from Rustic Essentials called Sea Kelp, and I've been thinking about, okay, how am I going to color this? And I know what sea kelp looks like because we live near the ocean, and often we see it's kind of golden or to amber, and sometimes with a little bit of olive green. But I had this in my mind, the back of my mind, and went on a walk through Balboa Park. It's a beautiful park showing you this botanical building that's in the heart of the park, and in front of it is a big lily pond. And while I'm standing there with my friend, my artist friend, we're looking at things. We're always taking pictures of things that inspire us together. I saw this duck, and these ducks are really frisky in the pond. I'll spare you the details, but one started to land, and I followed it with my camera as it went across the pond. And later on, I think it was the same duck went floating on by, and I was looking at this duck, took a picture of it, and it wasn't until I got home and looked at my photo that I saw the green of the water. And so I looked at it closer and thought, there's my inspiration for this Sea Kelp soap. And so I'm going to show you the color tutorial, what kinds of greens I'm using in that one. But this fragrance is a kind of fresh green. It's like water greens and white musk and some vetiver. And so I become like a natural scent to the soap and a natural look with the greens in it. So let's get started with the making of the soap, starting with the color tutorial. So this should be a quick and easy color tutorial. It's only 3 colors to this soap. And I'm going to start off by putting on this nice light green. And what I did with my watercolors is I mixed some green with a little bit of yellow and then some white. So it's really a pastel of a yellow green. And that's going to be my base. It's a nice soft color, so it doesn't have to be flooded with mica to get it to look really nice, especially in a yellow soap batter where I don't have to fight with it. And then I'm also going to use some yellow. And this is a little bit of a pastel yellow because I added some white to it, so it wasn't like a bright yellow. Show you the difference. This is a pure yellow that I mixed it down with. That would be a little bit strong. And then I took some green and mixed that with some black watercolor. But with my soap, I'm going to have some green, a nice rich green. And I added a little bit of activated charcoal to that. I'll show you following this color tutorial a little bit about me mixing my micas. And the thing with mixing activated charcoal with your micas is that you just need a little bit of activated charcoal. If you mix too much, it's going to turn gray or black. So use it really sparingly. And I really mean like one of those like mini mica spoons. Just use the handle of it to take a little bit of that. I'll go get my mica spoon to show you. So here's my activated charcoal, and here's one of these little measuring spoons. So like even this is going to be possibly too much, so I'm going to use the back side of that spoon and take just a little bit of that. You can't even trust this stuff when you mix it in a jar with your micas, because once you blend it with your soap, something happens to, in the emulsifying of that activated charcoal with your colors, and it turns very dark real quickly. So even though you don't see it as you mix up your micas, just know that that black is going to do the trick as far as making it a little darker. Okay, let me show you a little bit about how I mix my micas with my oils before I add them to my soap. So before I mix up my soap with my colorants, I thought I'd show you that I've combined the micas with my batch oils, and that's my mix of oils before I add the lye to it. And that is pistachio mica, and this is the Harlequin shimmer mica, but I wanted it a little darker, so I added a little bit of activated charcoal. You've got to really watch out, because sometimes that charcoal doesn't really make its impact until you mix it with the soap. So it looks dark green right now, but I bet it's going to darken even more once I mix it with the batter. And then here's my basic yellow. Color Joy mica, and all these are from Rustic Essentials. I like this bright yellow, but I do have to use a little bit more of yellow. Any yellow mica, I've found that to be true. So let's get this incorporated with the soap. So I haven't showed this for a while, so I think I will. This is my oils, and that white layer on the bottom is the kaolin clay. And I tend to incorporate my kaolin clay with some water to get it all, I just want to get it wet and stirred before I add it to the oils, and that might be going overboard, but that's what I've been doing. And anytime I can, I do a lot of blending before the lye is in there, just because you can do that to your heart's content, and I like to make sure that all the particles are incorporated, and that's where most of my additives are added at that stage. And then I'll add my lye with my deformed spatula. It has this little curve to it, and it helps me to scrape out all the lye without having to contort myself too much. It's just been really, I don't know what's going to happen when I lose this spatula, but I've had it for a long time. The other thing I do is, like most soapers, we try to get the bubbles out of our blender before we do much of the blending so that we don't get any extra bubbles in there. And I tend to give it a good stir first. I can even see the reaction of the lye turning the batter a little browner. And then I blend. And I just want it emulsified. See some more oil on the top, so I'll emulsify a little longer. Okay, that looks good. Then I'm going to add my biggest amount of colorant outside this bowl. The pistachio is going to be the major part of this soap, and I just mixed a little bit of this color because that's just going to be a little accent, and that's the Harlequin green with the activated charcoal. And scrape on the bottom there, get a good head start. Also, I can see that it is a little darker than it would be without the activated charcoal. And then I'm going to add the pistachio mica that I've already mixed with the little of the batch oils, as I said. Stir that in a little. With the yellowing of the soap batter, I don't really need a lot of that mica to compensate for yellowing, since green has yellow in it. Okay, so let's blend this. I'm going to do a partial in the pot swirl with the yellow and the pistachio green, and then I'm going to pour the darker green into it. And make sure I add the fragrance. Have any of you ever forgotten to put your fragrance in? I think I did that once at the very beginning when I started the soap. The nice thing about this fragrance, Sea Kelp from Rustic Essentials, is it says that it doesn't accelerate and doesn't discolor. So remember that you sometimes want to bring your batter to emulsification, because you know if you continue to blend that after you add the colorants and the fragrance to it, you will generally bring it up to a trace at that point. So bringing it to emulsification when you're just mixing the soap batter prevents some of that over hardening of the soap. We'll give this a good stir. Get any bubbles out of it. Generally, I get more bubbles in my smaller containers because it's so shallow. It pulls in some of the air above the soap. And if it's very liquid, you have the chance to stir it down, I suggest you do that. You'll be happier not finding any bubbles in your soap. I don't know if you can tell, but this is a nice darker green, and that's darker than it would be all on its own. So that activated charcoal is responsible for that, and happily I didn't put too much activated charcoal. That's strong stuff. I've used too much in some soaps, and it nearly turned that batter black rather than a shade of the color I was mixing it with. Okay, so let's do the in the pot swirl with the yellow and the lighter of the two greens. I think I'm just going to pour that in from a high point, little swirls. Save some of that for the top. And I don't think I'm even going to stir that. Do my drop swirl with the darker green, and I'm pouring from about a foot above the mold, and then I'm going to get closer so I can have some nice swirls on the top with that color. Scrape the rest of that in. I'm still experimenting with camera angles too, so maybe you'll let me know whether that seems better for you. And sometimes you have to sympathize with your fellow YouTube soaper, because sometimes it's really awkward to get your camera in a place because you need to be safe and you've got a lot of supplies around you. I think I'm going to save some of that yellow for the very top, get the rest of this pistachio and yellow mix in there. This is another one of my favorite colors to use. Let's see. that down, getting the remaining air bubbles out of there, if there are any under there. And let's see. I do like the color. I think I combined colors that I thought I could imagine sea kelp having. And sea kelp has a kind of orangey beige color to it also, but in our mind's eye we think of it as a plant, which it is, and so probably made it a little greener than it would be in real life. Let's see here. I think I'll do some spirals. That's it. It's a fresh scent with, I detect it smells like a little bit like sea kelp, but it's definitely not a fishy, oceany kind of smell at all. But it's amazing what they can do with these fragrances. And then I'm going to give this a light spraying with alcohol, slow down the soda ash on top, and that's it. We will bring you back for the cut. Okay, so I've already started to cut this sea kelp, cold processed soap. Just a little hint of that harlequin green shimmer mixed with a little bit of activated charcoal, made that a little darker. Kind of like how it turned out, knowing that it looks like seaweed floating atop water somewhat. Plus it really gave a really different look to my soap than I usually have. I'm also happy with how the pistachio green and the yellow combined as a backdrop to the dark swirls. I think you can make that out on camera. I'm a little surprised that the darker drop swirl didn't go deeper into the soap, because I poured it from about 12 inches above the mold when I poured it, but soap batter can be pretty dense sometimes to go down deeper, but they're great colorants. Really like this pistachio mica. They're not looking very different, so let's just do a couple more cuts. And I'll continue with this off camera. Take some shots of it. They're a little more difficult to photograph once I'm all done with it, because they really don't want to stand on end to pose for me so well, but I just put them flat on the table and light it well and then take my photos. Okay, let's just do one more cut. Thank you for watching and subscribing. Got some really nice comments lately too, so thank you to those people that are almost always commenting. Really appreciate that. And check out my Instagram too, where I post my inspiration for lots of things that I see actually end up going in my brain and coming out in different ways later on. So just because I see something today doesn't mean I'm going to use that idea right away. But I do take photographs of things that inspire me so that I can keep them in my computer and look at them closely when I need a certain color scheme for soaps. And we'll see you next time. I'm planning on doing more artist-based soap, like looking at my favorite artists and finding one of their famous paintings and basing soaps on that. So look forward to those, and we'll see you real soon. Bye, everybody.